year?
22nd
year, has gone through various iterations or
yes, it
themes.
has. It was a dinner.
Yeah. And now it's, who knows what it is. It's hard to explain, isn't it? It's called a luncheon, but
it's a luncheon.
You know, but my God, you cannot walk out of that room
feeling good.
Oh my God, it is one of the most draining days of my life.
Yep.
Period. You know, I'm exhausted for days after that. I'm exhausted for a day after doing a podcast. So you know, but the joy that comes from that day is huge. Now, the pain that comes from what we're experiencing with our recent losses is harsh as well. Like,
of course it is.
You know, like I smile as much as I cry, you know, and I've adopted a veteran, so I have lunch with Don every Wednesday. You know, it's one of those things. You
leave him alone, will you?
No, he wants me for some reason. It's very weird. I somehow got adopted, or I adopted. I don't know, but it's one of those things where, like, for me. And once again, not about me, but this one was close to home. And you may not necessarily have known the finer details of my history on the military side, but when you approached me, it was an immediate yes, you know. And as painful as it is for me to deal with people, it's the one that to this day I still contribute to. You know what I mean? Because it's not necessarily about the people that are in the room. It's not necessarily about the individuals. It's not about the personalities.
Your memory
is, you know. It is much larger,
yep.
much larger than anything.
It's inside.
Oh,
it's in your heart, pal.
And that one, like I said, for me, I say Trump. I shouldn't say that word, but they'll never have the same word. But it trumps all other projects I've worked on, and we're talking some significant work.
And I will tell you this: when I approached you, I did not know that background.
No, that's what I was saying. It was just spectacular that it happened,
and because it was serendipity.
Oh,
because
totally.
I wanted you on board because of your expertise, and we were starting to build websites.
Yep.
We were starting to build and kind of up our game.
Yep.
And I knew you were the guy that was going to help us.
By the way, I'm working on the rebuild of the website today already.
There you go.
There you go. So let's talk a bit about Think of It, because it has so many levels to me.
Yep.
Okay, and in the theme of this event, or of this conversation about playing in the same sandbox, it is one of the largest examples of a multi-tier involvement in this city. And this would apply anywhere. It just happens to be in the city, where you've got not only elected officials at the mayoral level in multiple counties, you've got 2 elected chiefs, you've got the police department fully supporting it, right from the chief on down, you've got the fire department from both counties, you got the OPP, you got the Six Nations police, the list goes on and on and on. And then you've got 15, 20, 30 organizations that we count on and are grateful for funding this.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge amount of multi-tier sandbox playing to pull something together that I don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah, when I took it over, it was a one-man show.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a one-man show.
This was Stan?
This is Stan Wozniak. Now, it was not, that's not an insult.
No.
It was very difficult for Stan. And rest his soul, he did things the way he wanted to do things, and that's fine. I taught his children, and I got to know him enough that he tapped me on the shoulder one time and said, "I'm doing this. Can you give me a hand?"
Now, were you elected at the time?
No.
You were a teacher at the time.
I was principal,
okay.
Yeah. And I came in and I saw it needed organizing. And I had to delicately get Stan to understand that if he allowed me to get this person to do it, just let them do their job, and then they'll come back. And don't worry, don't talk to them. You don't have to contact them. They'll get it done. And it started to show the signs that this is what could happen. Now, Stan was in the middle of 2 or 3 other things that he created for veterans, which actually he doesn't get enough credit for.
Well, let me take 2 seconds.
Yeah.
The story, if I understand this correctly, is he rode his bicycle across the country touting the idea of a double poppy.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
He wanted to identify veterans easier on the street or even during Remembrance Day.
Yep.
So he asked, he got permission from the Royal Canadian, and they said, if you put 2 poppies on, you're a veteran. Doesn't matter if you served overseas or not, just You signed up and you were a veteran. 2 poppies, and then now they make the little metal things with 2 poppies. So it caught on in the region. I don't know if it's caught on in the country, but it's caught on.
It's definitely, well, you're going to have 9 billion people hearing this. It's going to caught on. China's going to have it.
So what happened is when he did the ride, that became part, and then he had to do this other thing as he kind of evolved it out of the Dutch Club, because originally the Dutch Club wanted to do an anniversary of the liberation of Holland. And they had a big anniversary dinner, and then Stan helped them, and then he saw the value of it.
Stan wasn't Dutch, was he?
No. He was just this veteran thing, right? This in his heart.
He gravitated to that.
In his heart of hearts, he wanted
familiar.
to help them. Yeah. So he helped them out, and then it created. Well, then why don't we do this every year? Well, we can't do a dinner every year. And then Stan said, "Oh, I'll do a lunch."
Yeah.
And then it started, and then he had done the rowing. He was going to do some rowing. He was going to row across the Erie and blah, blah, blah.
And once again, this is in an era where stuff like that is what we would turn to catch the attention of the media.
Right.
You would swim the Lake Erie. You would do this was very telling of the time that this was the type of stuff that
he needed to get attention so that the volume of people that would understand it could help him.
Yeah, this is pre-Facebook.
Yeah, this is pre-Facebook. Yeah. And then during that process, I was elected MPP, and then Stan called me one day and he said, "I'm done. That's it. I'm not doing it." I said, "What do you mean you're not doing it?" "We're not doing it this year." And we were only months away from it. And I said, "Oh, no, we're going to do it." And he said, "No, I'm out. I'm gone." It was a combination of things, and to most people not knowing, or there was a health issue, and then so I basically said, I can't let this. It was too good, so I took it over, and then I immediately formed a committee.
Imagine that, where things get delegated,
and I put the call out, and I know the people I called in would be able to tackle it, because I knew enough of them through education, and I knew enough of them through my charity work and everything else, that of the people I brought in, I knew that we could make this happen in a short period of time, because it was like an emergency.
Yeah.
We had to.
Well, that's right. You're talking about that time where you salvaged it out of the ashes, for lack of.
It was gonna be ended. So we put it on, and then I said, okay, now that we have this, we did the rotating chairs every 2 years so that it was fresh, and that we brought in new members from time to time, which you were one of them, and other people joined, and then the big catch we got was the participation of the 56th Field Regiment. Kindred spirits, obviously. And it was pre-Afghanistan. But definitely still, Army, blah, 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 blah. So,
and this is, now, were they big artillery back then, or was it still focusing on...
Artillery. They were artillery.
Because there was a while there was still mostly... in any case, I was
it was the 56th Field.
It was always artillery, okay.
Yeah, the 56th Field came on, and the commander... Every commander since that time has been briefed on this thing and said, "Hey guys, we're in." And so when you hear your commander say, "We're in," they're in. And they're
right down to Lawrence, who's the current one. He drove. I don't know if you know the day of the last luncheon, he was in Kingston.
He was in Kingston.
He drove all the way in, knocked it out of the park with his speech, and had to drive all the way back. But brand new to the region, had never even heard about it, and boom, he's in.
Recognize the input, the value, and the reality of. We went through an era years and years ago. We went through an era where the Army wasn't seen as cool. That has taken on a new life, and quite frankly, the 56th at one time was talking about, actually the federal government was talking about maybe consolidating, closing. Jane Stewart and I, when she was MP and I was MPP, we went to some public meetings, and we started to kind of say, wait a minute, what are we doing here? This is important.
It would be interesting to see what would have happened to the Armory if that had happened.
Converted.
Yeah, that would have been such a shame.
Yeah. So we have what we have, and the 56th has been stellar ever since. The real thing that they do strongly for us is the grunt work, like the day-to-day prep to set up and all that kind of stuff. But also, they also bring the dignity of a parade, a color party, respecting the elders, elder kind of veterans, as, we were there. Yeah. We understand who you are. We've got your back. Yeah. And they treat each other with utmost respect. And it's amazing to watch. People don't realize that when you start watching it, and I've had the wonderful position of seeing the
Well,
overthink.
you're up on the podium
Yeah.
watching it all. Yeah.
And when you see them interact, you can see
Yeah.
that this respect that they have for each other. And what the veterans need to understand is that when we see you, we're in awe.
Yeah.
Here you are, and I keep reminding people, stop looking at them as 89 and 90-year-olds. Look at them at 18,
I know,
19,
or
20.
16.
Well, the one guy told me his story. He was 14 years old.
Yeah.
Big guy,
Yeah.
but
But
14
still,
years old, lied about his age and got away with it.
The majority of the World War II locals were underaged, you know.
And quite frankly, I used that when I spoke to high schools.
Mm-hmm.
I said to them, I said, how many people here are 14 years old?
Yeah.
And put up your hand.
Yeah.
15 years old, put up your hand. There's people that lied about their age to go overseas to die.
Yeah.
Would you do that today?
No.
Yeah. I wasn't being cruel to them.
But it's true though.
It's the mentality.
Well, here's the other aspect too, and you got to put it in a certain context. When you take something like World War II or the precursor to World War II, or World War One, the call for something like that is overwhelming. Overwhelming. You saw it with 9/11, with the increase in Marines in the States, and the list goes on and on. But it's, to me, what's really interesting, and this is, when I think about a Matt Bradley or the list goes on, they weren't necessarily joining the reserves in their particular case during an active call to arms. You know what I mean? Now, in many cases, they found themselves in Afghanistan because they had put their name on paper, and you got called. Mm-hmm. That's what being a reservist is. You will occasionally get called, and it won't be just for
flood control.
And I'm not saying that it's a negative.
No.
God help them right now. Like, me, I run the Facebook page. My feed has been mostly supporting images that have been submitted from all of those efforts. Thank God they're there. You know what I mean? They are really good at filling bags full of dirt, and I'm grateful for it. But you watch how they do it. It's that same model. It's 10 people, and it's done. You know what I mean? That model works. But when you look at those that chose to join, not because there was a world war, not because there was a conflict, because they felt the need to serve, period. You know what I mean? We don't know those stories as well.
No.
You know what I mean? And they're not necessarily ready to be told either in many cases. But when you take the historical examples, as you say, of the Derek Pites, no one pictures Derek as he was back then.
Of course not.
I saw a photo. We had recently lost Kern, the Korean veteran. I forget his name all of a sudden. It doesn't matter. But in any case, it matters, but it doesn't necessarily matter for the purpose. I was looking at the photo that they put up, and it was like, the original photo. And there was another gentleman that comes to the air show. I forget his name as well all of a sudden. But, he doesn't have an ear anymore. And the photo that we pulled up for the CF-18 people was probably the last photo of him with his ear, because it was taken before the plane crash, right?
Right.
So, you hear about those stories, and then, as you say, the kids now see them as elders, see them as senior citizens, and what are our senior citizen responsibilities, and not necessarily what are our PTSD responsibilities.
Right.
And then you take the Cold War period, and I have lunch with someone, that spent time on a sub during, one of the scariest moments in our generation, which is, nuclear, we would have all died that day. And he's in a sub, not knowing what's going on, and you hear about these things afterwards.
Absolutely.
The mental strain of being on a run silent, run deep. It's not taking a bullet.
No, but it reminds me, and I'm glad you brought that kind of story up, because it reminds me of how thankful we need to be, without getting maudlin about it, but it reminds me of how thankful we need to be in order for a segment of our society who have chosen to do that, and during a certain period in our history, we looked down upon it.
Yes.
And so from my perspective, you've multiplied the PTSD, you've multiplied that memory, because I talked to a guy 2 years ago, and it'll haunt me. 2 years ago, the guy came up to me and he says, I got to tell you something. This was at the end of the luncheon. I got to tell you something. You've helped me understand why I need to tell you this. He kept hedging towards what he wanted to tell me, and I could tell he was struggling. And he said, I had to witness some beheadings in the islands. This is how they treated their enemies. And I had to be there. I had to see it happen. And he said, it changed my life.
Mm.
Can you imagine people that were 20 years old, 18 years old, carrying that, and this guy was in his late 80s.
Yeah.
So his entire
and
life
hadn't really processed it, clearly. Still processing to this day.
pushed it
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah.
And the need for him, because of the comfort that they all feel when we bring them all together, and that the thank yous come out, and the appreciation of who they are, and letting them sit beside each other and share their stories and have some good time. And you could see a lot of laughter.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And some of these guys look forward to see you next year.
Yep.
See you next year. And to me, that represents the good of the community. They represent us as the good of the community. And by damn, they made the world better.
Yeah. And it's great, too, because
crazy.
we also give them that opportunity once, a year outside of the actual Remembrance Day.
Yes.
Events, where, they can revisit that part of their life in a safe environment, in a thankful environment, surrounded by their peers, and also, and I've said this before, a current Afghan veteran that is currently dealing with a modern-day PTSD, sitting beside someone that has been processing their PTSD for the last 60 years or whatnot, is the best kind of therapy you can get.
For both of them.
Because nobody outside of those two people will understand certain aspects of society that we are fortunate to not have to. Dave, have you seen someone beheaded today? I haven't. Okay.
But that's, I got to tell you, that's why I love Think of It. I just can't. And I told them that when I was retiring, I let them know, I said, I as long as I can get there, I'm going to be there.
You are not excused.
Yeah.
as the current co-chair and future chair, you are far from excused, because I'm pretty sure at some point in time, and I'll put this on the record, you said, Rob, if you do this chairing, Bill and I will be there to fully support you. That one's to you, Bill. In any case, Bill Chop has to be on this podcast at some point in time. That's someone
he's got some stories.
I know. I have a lot of respect for Bill. So we used 4 examples, and the reason we use these 4 examples, these are all examples, especially the Thank Yvette, considering the levels of
the
activity.
Community coming together.
You would not have that occur if you were not all playing in the sandbox together. That is a prime example of one big sandbox on that day, every year.
It's a proud moment to watch happen, and as it evolves and starts to come together for the event itself, it's a joy to hear the reports of everybody saying, yep, we got the donation, we got this, we got that, everything's all set, and everybody does it like clockwork, and it feels so right.
Yeah.
And I think it's the event envy of some cities, because I've had some visitors come and say there was a group from Cambridge. There was a group from Hamilton. There were friends that would call us at the office when I was in my office. There were friends that would call me in my office and say, Bob's coming over from Vancouver to visit me just so that he could go to the Thank Yvette. Yeah. And I'm going, holy mackerel, we're supposed to only do the local guys.
Well,
send them along.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and once again, not to put a fine point on it, once again, it's not about us, it's about them. And I've said this before, if you're willing and want to make the trek to Brantford, I'm not going to be the one to deny you a seat at that table if you are a veteran. It's as simple as that.
Okay, we can't go running around advertising this too much.
No, it's not about that.
We still have good numbers in there.
We've got great numbers, but it's one of those things where I believe truly that day is a day to be thankful. And if anybody, especially those that are struggling, where that event could help them, You know what I mean? It's there for a reason in that sense, right? And it's, like I said, I'm involved. I'm not even a level of government, or anything like that. So this is me speaking for me here, right? But I truly believe that when you see something like that happen, and it's not about, all the politicians being on the stage doing their speeches or whatnot. It's not about all the officials being in the audience. It's not about the Lord Mayor Walter doing, the grace. You know what I mean? It's all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is by far one of the examples that I hold on to when I look at that. Like, there are people at that luncheon that I would not say hi to outside of that luncheon, but on that day, at that event, they get a hug. Simple as that, because it's the respect of that event.
Oh, going to be the hugging chairman.
Oh, hey, I've said this before. Brantford turned me into a hugger.
There you go.
There's just something about Brantford.
Better that than a mugger.
Oh my God, it's better that than a lot of things. Like I said, I have a love-hate relationship. I'll be the first to say it, but I still talk about Brantford on a regular basis with these podcasts. Every single podcast has been about Brantford.